All right. Well, welcome everyone to our candidate interview sessions for the 2023 Evanston Municipal elections. My name is Tom Moser. I'm a member of the Democratic Party of Evanston, and I'm joined today by fellow board member Barb Cornu, and we're going to be speaking with Darlene Cannon, who is candidate for alderperson of the Second Ward. We want to remind you all that we will be having our upcoming endorsement session soon, and that you too can become a voting member and decide whether or not the Democratic Party of Evanston will endorse any of these candidates. Uh, at this time, I'm going to ask that Darlene take a moment to introduce herself.
Okay, thank you. And thank you both for having me. My name is Darlene Cannon, and I'm a community organizer. I'm committed to inclusive politics and that the truth that justice is only achieved when it is shared among all. Currently, some of the roles that I play, I'm a commissioner on the Equity Empowerment Commission, and I'm on the leadership team of Reclaim Evanston. As your council member, I would look to listen to your concerns and co-govern with you. And as a lifelong resident, I've witnessed many of the successes and challenges that we've experienced, not just in the Second Ward, but throughout the entire city. I look forward to the opportunity to not only not only serve as an elected leader, but also to capture input from the residents from the Second Ward and throughout the entire community. And I look forward to craft policies that will and legislation based on the needs and the interests of the entire community, but specifically the Second Ward. So just another thing from my vision, I look for us to expand affordable housing in the ward, and based on affordability, meaning all of our affordable housing needs, and to work closely with local businesses and coordinate efforts with our school districts as well to make sure that our community is safe for everyone. So again, thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll dive right into it then. Our first question is going to concern equity in Evanston. How well do you feel that the city has upheld its goal of assessing decisions and policies through the lens of equity? As an example, we became a city several years ago that was the first in the nation to pass reparations. The program has recently been criticized for the slow pace of the payouts. Do you feel this program can be improved? And if so, how?
I think, yes, I think the program could use some improvement. I have read the many concerns from residents inside of Evanston and people outside of Evanston. I think that we need to possibly go back to seeing about cash payments for people that have applied for reparations. And I don't think that we're doing as good a job as we should be doing. I think we do a good job at talking about equity, but for the last 2 years, we have kept the levy flat, which has kept the lack of property tax increases, because for the last 20 years, we've raised property and taxes. Also, so looking at how we're spending our money, our budget is supposed to be a moral document. So we look at how it impacts our most vulnerable residents. And if it means that we're going to raise the wheel tax, how is that going to affect a family of 3 or 4 who is just, barely making it? Those type of things are what we should be taking into consideration. And so again, back to equity, when we talk about how we're doing with equity, we just had a 39-page Black employee report. So as I've briefly said in other forums, I think the city has single-handedly attributed to the wealth gap between Black people in Evanston. And so, we work with an organization, we're a member of an organization called GARE, governmental, I forget exactly what it means for, but they work on equity issues. I think that we should be working with them directly to resolve this issue, but we also should be looking at, if this has been happening for decades, we should be looking at our leadership. What is going on with the leadership? Is it coming from the top down? And, do we need to reevaluate the types of people that, we're hiring and the type of people we have in leadership? I'm a bit I think 90% of our employees or 80% of our employees don't live here. And of our employees at the city, while simultaneously we have this report that says the Black employee report, and it shows that the city of Evanston is one of the top paid cities in Evanston. So us collaborating with organizations like GARE to really look at what we can do to improve quality of work life for all of a city employees, and obviously since the Black employee report, to try to see what we can do to make it more livable and just a healthy work environment overall.
That's the letter that was published in November by a group of city employees.
Yes, that's correct.
That's excellent that you bring that up, because that letter did, as you said, include an action plan for the city.
Right.
And so you've touched on it some, but are there more specific recommendations in there that you'd like to see implemented? And are there any that you disagree with?
No, I did read it in November, so unfortunately I don't remember it all. But I mean, it was very clear and laid out as to what needs to be done. I think that when people are harmed, they have a good understanding, a thorough understanding of how they need to be repaired. So they've laid it out to us. I said, and if we came to the table and had organizations like GARE, I keep calling it GARE involved, we could meet the needs of the employees. So yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not sure exactly how far we are along with it, but there's always room to do more, to do better. We should be, we pride ourselves on our diversity. We're the first city to pass a reparations program. So we should also be trying to make Evanston, livable and workable for all, a good, safe, and healthy work environment. So.
Excellent.
I love how you keep saying healthy environment.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. Moving on to housing, if I may, Tom.
Of course.
Despite the number of new residential units constructed in Evanston over the last few years, especially in high-rise developments approved by the City Council, housing costs in Evanston continues to rise. Do you feel that the inclusionary housing ordinance is doing enough to combat this? And what solutions would you like to see to improve?
So no, I don't feel that our inclusionary housing ordinance is doing enough. We have one of the lowest. It's at 5%. I think it should be 10, if even not 15%. I think 15% is what Chicago currently uses. But also, Evanston is a very sought after community. We're right by the lake. We have Northwestern. We're married to them, whether we like it or not, we're married to them. And, so it's a very sought after community. So people want to come and build here. I think that we need to really hold developers to build what it is that we need. Often developers build what it is that they want, but I don't see enough pushback. We have families who are homeless in District 65, and that's only because they actually track it. I don't know, or I haven't seen any data that 202 does. And then outside of that, just the broader Evanston community, how many people are housing insecure or underhoused? When we have developers come in and they want to put in a micro unit, the micro units, they're great for a college student, but not for a family of 5. So I think that we should do more. I think also, we have landlords that accept Section 8, but there's very few. We need to see what we can do to bring our landlords to the table to try to get them to accept Section 8. I think that will also increase more affordable units as well. Those are the kind of the main things. I also think that one of the biggest things is that when we get units with developers, they stay available, they stay affordable 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Mm-hmm. We need affordable housing units to stay affordable until perpetuity, indefinitely, because we're unfortunately probably going to have an income gap or people who are going to need assistance. And unless we eradicate that within the next 10, 15 years, we're going to be having this conversation again. So, how do we do that? I read I think Houston, the city of Houston bought a bunch of housing units in a transit-oriented district that is going to be owned by the city. It's going to be managed by another outside company, but they're going to have the different levels. So the 30 to 50% AMI, 60 to 80 and so forth. Because you don't want, I think that we should have a variety of income levels in housing buildings. So, that is, hopeful and promising. It's a start. It's a small start, but I think it was like 364 units. So it was a massive building that they bought, but it's a start. And I would love to see something like that for, Evanston, for residents of Evanston. So
just one more on housing. Even though it's not in your ward, there's been obviously contentious discussion around the use of the Margarita Inn as a residence for unhoused individuals. What do you feel could be done to assuage the concerns of local residents while still providing services to our city's most vulnerable population? And I live 1 block away from that and I've had no problems at all. So,
right. Well, so I think a lot of different things. I think from someone who grew up with a sibling who had addiction issues, and I look at now all the different variable services that are available. So I'm big on making sure that, that people, I don't want anybody to live on the street, but I think that getting people into facilities and getting them the help that they need is critical. And that's, where I'm at. Like I said, I was impacted by it. And so I see, and like, it just amazes me that there's so many more options now than there was when I was 10 years old and my sibling was going through that. So I think anything that we can make sure that we can get people housed, that's the critical. Because given our weather that we experience, it's nice today, there could be a hailstorm tomorrow. We just want to make sure that people are housed. We want to make sure that they're housed, most importantly, with dignity. And we want to make sure that people are getting the help and services that they need. So if that's what, like, I've followed it here and there. I've read a lot of comments on social media. So yeah.
Thank you.
But that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. Recently, the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law by President Biden, and this includes, sticking with the housing vein, grants for helping low-income citizens get environmental upgrades to housing. This also includes vital infrastructure improvements like lead pipe abatement, and environmental upgrades like solar panel installation. Unfortunately, not many people know that these programs and these options are available to them. What can the city do to help citizens access these benefits?
Thank you. Yes, lead pipes. I would have liked to have seen some ARPA funds going to replace more lead pipes throughout the city, especially like with our older homes. So I think, we need to have more, we have to reach everyone. We can't reach everyone by email. We have lots of elderly people who are not on email. So, I mean, we need to go back to snail mail and put things in the mail and have community dialogues about, environmental justice and the things that need to be done. I learned that, I have a flat roof on my house. So I have these giant spears that develop from the ice and the freezing. And that's because my attic is not properly insulated. But those are things that, people need to know about, and people need to understand about the resources that are available to help them, and because, me getting my roof better insulated most likely is going to cut down my heating bill. And if I was able to get solar panels too, then that also would cut down on my energy bills as well. So, explaining it to people and having several different, community conversations about it. And maybe even if we have people who are willing to go out and volunteer to go door to door to, encourage people to come out and learn about these opportunities that are available, I think that's great. Because like I said, seniors, they're not, some seniors are on the internet, others are not. So we need to try to reach everyone, and we need to have it also in several different languages. We have a huge Latino population. We have a huge Caribbean population as well. And we need to make sure, and we have people coming in from Ukraine. So we need to make sure that we have it in several different languages so that everyone knows that we have these resources available and how they can get assistance when and assistance for them and for their homes. So
cool. Moving slightly different but the same. Do you feel overall that the expenditures by the city of Evanston over the last 4 years have appropriately reflected the priority needs and interests of Evanston residents? Big question.
So thank you. I do a lot of looking at the budget. As I said previously, the budget's a moral document, and I feel like we could do better. I feel like looking at how we most recently, whether we've been doing for the past 20 years, we've been underfunding our fire pension. And how that turns out is that we have to pay $7 million each year, but we're paying 25 because we've underpaid it for since 1982, I want to believe. And so that $18 million is interest. That is interest that we could be using on our city's infrastructure, interest that we could be using to help families in crisis, interest to help people to fund reparations. I mean, there's so many different things that we could be using that money for, but yet here we are. That is just one of the biggest examples that I can see that we haven't used our money properly. And, it saddens me because I've seen the decline of the people leaving. And there's been a decline of Black people, but also middle-class people who are exiting out of Evanston because as a result of that, because of us not being fiscally responsible, we've had to do away with services and raise fees. So I think that we could do a lot better.
Thank you for sharing that and digging into that. Sort of on the same note, so the City Council has allocated $3 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds to be dispersed through the participatory budgeting process, which, how do you feel the process has gone so far, and what can the city do to get more people involved in this process? Always the question.
Right. So I think, again, more outreach. And like I said, we're not going to reach everybody by Facebook, Instagram, websites, or email. We're going to have to go back to mailing stuff to people and trying to get knocking on doors and getting people engaged that way. I did attend one of the sessions at Fleetwood, and it more or less talked about what our group came up with. One of our top priorities is housing, but also it kind of leads into what we were just talking about in regards to Margarita Inn, in the sense that when we have people who come home after being incarcerated, how do we reintegrate them into the community? What services can we offer them so that they can, get jobs and get housing, and also still, because if they've been incarcerated for a short time or a long time, there's still counseling that needs to be involved. And I think that would be an excellent way to, as one person said in our group, to make them whole again. And that's because, they're coming into an environment again that they're not sure if they're welcome. And so it's our job to make sure that they're welcome, and that we make sure that their needs that they're welcome, and that their needs are met, and that they understand that we're there for them. So, that's one of the things that, I was big on because, of, my lived experience. And, I see people who, if we had, I think, better programs, better outreach for residents, that maybe that could, I'm hopeful that would change the trajectory of their lives. I mean, because that's what we want. We want everyone to, have what it is that they need. So.
Thank you.
We've spoken and touched obliquely a couple of times on the subject of jobs. Even before the pandemic, it seemed as though downtown Evanston was full of empty storefronts. What do you believe can be done to promote development in a way that prioritizes small businesses and local ownership?
Right. Thank you. Very good question, because as I've been campaigning, I've been out talking to small businesses. And I think that we need to really talk to the businesses and see what it is that they need. They are the business owners, and they know that they were successful before the pandemic, and they know that there's been a decline. So they might have ideas and suggestions that we could participate and be a part of to help them become more successful. With the empty storefronts, I think we should, engage with the landlords and see what it is that they're doing to try to get the spaces filled. I mean, in many cases, we've lost businesses like LA Fitness, which had a huge footprint downtown Evanston, because the rent was too high. So, I mean, those are things that we need to consider as well, because we're still recovering from the pandemic. We don't know what's ahead or around the corner. So we need to look at those type of things. And growing up in Evanston, I remember what downtown Evanston was. There was like several ice cream places for kids to hang out. Kids could ride their skateboards on the sidewalk. I mean, there was just a lot of places, like Tom Thumb, and just a lot of things that, drew people from not just Evanston, but all over to Evanston. So I think, we need to get back to that. Also, with our restaurants, downtown Evanston, I feel like I think I was in Arlington Heights, and excuse me, and in the evening time, they kind of shut everything down, and just the restaurants and everything just kind of pours out into the street. They got music, they got all that going on, but that gets people out enjoying the outside. It's summertime, and everyone's together, and from there the businesses are able to thrive. So I think we need to look at models like that beyond beyond when we were isolated in the pandemic, but going forward, because we need people and bodies. And then what can we do as far as parking? Can we offer free parking? Or you buy 1 hour, you get one free, something like that, to encourage people to come here. Because if we continue on the path we're on right now, unfortunately, people are going to go to surrounding suburbs like Skokie and Wilmette and dine. And, we don't want that. We want them to dine. We want Evanston, our downtown Evanston, and, Evanston to be successful as a whole. That's why we're here. So.
I spent a lot of time in Arlington Heights, and you're exactly right about what they've done with their downtown area and all the restaurants coming together. And I don't know if it's the government or the chambers or the owners, but it is a good model to look at. Yeah.
It really is. And I just kind of stumbled upon it by accident. And I was like, what's going on here? And it's really nice.
And it survived through the pandemic. I mean, it's been pivoted to do stuff. So it would be a good, never thought about that as a model for Evanston before. So very nice point. Last question, if I may. Northwestern is a big part of the Evanston community. How would you make sure the city's relationship with the university adds value to the lives of your constituents?
Well, I think a lot of different things. I said before, we're married to Northwestern, and they're going to build a new stadium. I think that what we need to be looking at is how can we come together and see if and not and also with our other big employers here in town, and see how we can get them to prioritize hiring Evanston residents. First of all, I think that really helps as well. I think Northwestern owns about 330 acres of land. Wow. That is, tax exempt. They do pay taxes, but not property taxes like you and I. So we really need to, look at, when we think about a new stadium, I think about we're going to need more police. More police are going to need to be there to help with crowd control. We're going to need firemen, and more paramedics, because things happen when large groups of people get together. It's going to be more of a burden on our infrastructure, our roads and everything. And we do get money from the state, but still, that is also still an impact. And also the impact on, the community, the neighbors, the businesses as well. So I think that what we should be looking at, and I know that with the Finance and Budget Committee with the city, that they voted unanimously on a pilot task force, so payment in lieu of taxes. And we can, try to come to the table with them to try to figure out how we can get them to give a significant amount to relieve the burden from the residents of Evanston. When we look at Hartford, I think it is, where Yale is, they came up with an agreement to help the city. And so, we need help. We have a decline of affordability. Northwestern, as I previously stated, is bringing in students who are going to school, maybe going to school for free, but can't afford to live here because the rent is so high. So, they could build housing for their students, because then that takes them out of the equation of the burden that we already have of trying to find adequate housing for residents. There's a lot of different things that they could do. For our low income residents, maybe they can offer scholarships, 4-year scholarships to Northwestern. My son was a baseball player, and he would have loved to have gone to Northwestern to go to college, but the tuition isn't affordable. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that they can do. I hope that this is an opportunity that we can get some of those things done, so that we can make Evanston livable and sustainable for all. So
Okay.
Darlene, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today, for answering our questions. I'm sure that all of the voters of Evanston appreciate you giving them all this information. I'd like to remind everyone that our endorsement session will open February 19th. The voting will be open from February 19th, I believe, through the 26th. No, something like that. We will send out an email to all of our voting members when the voting is open. Again, Darlene, Barb, thank you so much for being here today. And that ends our candidate interview.